was not just about ending segregation, it was also about trying to end discrimination. Discrimination is something that's a little deeper, it's inside, and it takes a little bit more effort to get rid of. Here are two names, or two stories that are part of the civil rights movement. Emmett Till and Rosa Parks. Who can tell me the story of Emmett Till, first of all? Not from your book, maybe you know the story. The story that you told was of a young man who was actually visiting relatives, I believe, from Chicago. He was visiting relatives in Mississippi and talked about having a white girlfriend. Of course, friends didn't believe him because in Mississippi that sort of thing didn't happen. And so he spoke to a white woman. Speaking to a white woman, initiating a conversation with a white person was really something that blacks in Mississippi just simply didn't do, did they? And so initiating this conversation with a white woman, she found very offensive. She went home and told her husband, and the young man then was killed. He even confessed later to the murder, but an all-white jury found him innocent. The outrage was felt not just in Chicago, where this young man was from, but really all around the country. And what made that so? What made it possible for people all over the country now to see this case, to hear this case, and be outraged by it? TV, right? Television played an important role.
Oh, you mean the white guy confesses to the murder and they let him go?
There was no doubt in the minds of anyone probably in the country, but it has been very typically the case that if these cases even came to trial, which they didn't, that an all-white jury would not find a person guilty of killing a black person.
Like that dragging murder a while back in Texas.
Similar. The reaction was similar too. Great outrage. Outrage not only among the black community, but in the North and in other parts of the country. In Mississippi, they sort of expected this. This was sort of the norm. But outside of Mississippi, in many parts of the country, many whites were outraged too. That a person could be so blatantly guilty and be found innocent. Tell me the story of Rosa Parks. What's her background? What organization was she a member of?
NAACP?
Yeah, she was a member of the NAACP, good. And she had previously, before this particular incident, she had been arrested before for incidents on the bus. Get out or move back to the bus. And on this day, she decided that this was the day to try again. The NAACP, of course, was always looking for legal action, always looking for ways that they could fight against discrimination. And as a member of that, I think she was looking perhaps for legal action again. She refused to give up her seat for white passenger. She was arrested, and her arrest then brought about a boycott of the bus line in Montgomery. The Montgomery bus boycott began with this incident. How successful was that bus boycott? How long did it last? Almost a year, right. And it was very successful. Most blacks did stay off the buses, and that was quite a sacrifice. Why?
Well, the bus was how they got around.
For a lot of them, it was their only way to get to work, wasn't it? Taxis, of course, are expensive. A lot of them going together in carpools. A lot of them walked if they could. There were certain churches that got their own buses and took people around and tried to get them to work and so forth. But it was a real hardship for the black community because they, for the most part, had not been able to afford their own transportation and had relied on the bus line, which, by the way, was owned by mostly by white businessmen. What happened to the organizers of the bus boycott?
They were arrested, right?
They were arrested. How was it settled, by the way? It was settled when the bus company finally gave in and said, we're going to let did not apply to city buses. Why? Why can the federal government, in this case, the federal government,
Was it the Interstate Commerce Commission?
the Interstate Commerce Commission regulates trade
Across the state lines, right?
across state lines. So initially, it only affected buses that went across state lines, and then later they found other ways, and there are always ways, other ways to get at with buses in the city. They could say things like, well, the bus was manufactured outside of the state, brought into the state, therefore it can be controlled um, by interstate commerce, or they use gasoline that's made outside of the state or refined outside of the state, and therefore that gasoline is made outside of the state, then falls under our jurisdiction. Found ways to do it. 1957, as we move forward here a little bit, 1957 was the Little Rock, Arkansas school situation. What was that situation in Little Rock?
First integration of a high school.
Central High School was going to be integrated to a very small degree, by the way. Only 9 students were going to, black students were going to be sent to an all-white school. That was the first step of integration in Little Rock. They had a plan that was a multi-year plan to integrate their schools, and it was going to start with these 9 students.
Didn't President Truman intervene?
Yeah, the governor refused. He said, we will not allow this in Arkansas. He refused to such an extent that in the next year, he even did what? 1958. The Little Rock schools. Closed them down, right? Closed them down. And of course, he was found in contempt and so forth and so forth. But Eisenhower was in a difficult situation because Eisenhower really didn't believe that you could force people to accept integration. But on the other hand, the courts said they had to integrate, and that was the law, and he was the president. And it was the president's job to do what? To enforce the law. So he really felt kind of in the middle. And in the end, of course,